And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Friday, August 22nd, 2025. Starting with the sea ice. The state of the sea ice, we still have some broken pack ice out here north of Kaktovik, but otherwise water is pretty open there in the mouth of McKenzie River to east of Kaktovik, and then surrounding immediately near the shoreline, Utqiagvik, and down along the coastline there of the Chukchi Sea. And coming up, the pattern is going to be set some cooler weather along the Arctic coast, not drastically colder. There's going to be a frontal system whereby temperatures will generally be in the 30s there, but with a moist low pressure system warm front pushing across the west coast, Seward Peninsula into the western interior, especially between the spine of the Brooks Range and the Alaska Range. Very wet weather is going to be setting up through this region for the weekend. Places like Ambler and Shugnik could pick up as much as 4, nearly 5 inches of rain through Monday morning. So on the satellite imagery this Friday afternoon, we have this persistent low pressure in the North Pacific south of the Gulf, a little trough rotating along the outer coast of the Panhandle back up toward Yakutat. There are some areas of mainly light rain and some rain showers. Otherwise, high pressure south central areas where you're getting sun. It's a beautiful warm summer afternoon, 60s, some 70s, and it's going to get even warmer along this area of the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle over the weekend. Further to the west, though, we have low pressure coming up across the western Bering. It'll move through the Gulf of Anadyr and the Bering Strait late tonight and into Saturday morning. And that's going to bring some windier conditions along the west coast that include high surf advisory. So we do have a high surf advisory for basically the Bering Strait down along the coastline through Nome on over toward Golovin, and then Shaktoolik and all the way down Stebbins, and down through the lower Yukon coast. With southwest winds coming in the North Sound, some of the water levels could be around 3 to 5 feet above the normal high tide as we go through the day Saturday, and that moisture will spread inland. Meanwhile, weak high pressure will be in place along the Gulf Coast Panhandle, drying things out, warming it up. If you're lucky to have sunshine, it's going to be a very warm weekend across areas along the Gulf Coast. But here's that flow of moisture coming inland, all the way down in the tropical regions of the North Pacific, up across the Bering Strait, and this will be pumping the moisture into the interior over the weekend. On Sunday, the front stalls out, waiting for yet another impulse of low pressure with additional moisture and energy, and that's going to bring another round of some moderate and heavier rainfall. The southwest coast include Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay, and the Alaska Peninsula getting into Monday and on Tuesday. And this ridge of high pressure is likely to build back to the north and west later this weekend and on Monday. So that's just going to assure more sunshine, warm temperatures over the Panhandle, and even lingering up into south central areas that include the Kenai Peninsula around Prince William Sound, Cordova. So again, some very warm weather for those areas to wrap up the latter part of August. Saturday, we're looking at northwest winds, 10 to 15 knots, waves a couple of feet or so. For the inner channels, there are heat advisories in effect for Saturday and Sunday. Craig, Klawak, Ketchikan, Hyder could see temperatures 75 to near 80. Outer coast, we have more of an offshore flow from Sitka, Port Alexander, outside of Cross Sound. Otherwise, just variable 5-knot winds around Yakutat, and the rain showers that have been moving up along this area on Friday are going to be pushing out to sea on Saturday. And Sunday, winds will be generally north-northwest around 10 knots, even variable Stevens Passage. Waves no more than a foot or two for the inner channels. Outer coast, generally northwest winds outside of Yakutat down through Sitka off of Craig at 15 knots, waves 3-4 feet. Pretty light variable winds on Saturday, Prince William Sound outside of Hinchinbrook entrance along the Kenai coast, lower Cook Inlet. Variable winds 10 knots, waves just a couple of feet at best. More of a southerly wind, 20 to 15 knots from off of Anchor Point up to Anchorage. And in some of these more open expanses, you might find waves 2, 3, locally 4 feet. For Sunday, still variable winds, Prince William Sound, Hinchinbrook entrance, Kayak Island, just 10 knots, waves at best 2-3 feet. Winds will be more southerly, though, up through Cook Inlet around 20 knots and waves generally 3-4 feet. Now for Saturday, variable winds around 10 knots, Kodiak Island and along the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. So waves pretty minuscule, around a couple feet. Look for southwest winds 15 knots along the north side, the Bering side up into Bristol Bay with waves there maybe 2 to 3 feet. And then on Sunday, generally south-southwest winds around 15 knots area wide. 2-3 foot waves, Shelikof Strait. Maybe a couple few feet along the North Pacific side, still generally 3 to maybe 4 feet there, especially north of Cold Bay. Winds are going to be stronger out across the Aleutians because we do have a warm front, and that atmospheric river is bringing in a stronger wind field aloft. It's also going to reach the surface. Variable winds Saturday, far eastern Aleutians, 10 knots. But as you get west of Atka and Adak, winds increase from the south to 30 knots, waves building to 10 feet. And for Sunday, the eastern and central Aleutians will see winds generally in the 30 to 35 knot range. So we'll have some gale force southerly winds, Nikolsky through Atka to Adak. And again, that's in response of that surge of warm, moist air coming north and northeastward. Along the Pribilov's southwest winds 20 knots, that southwest wind of 20 knots coming into Kuskokwim Bay. Strongest flow of wind with the warm front pushing inland with rain will be along the lower Yukon coast into Norton Sound, waves 25 to 30 knot southwest winds, waves 6-7 feet. And again, the high surf advisory from the Bering Strait through Nome and then all along Norton Sound and down toward Hooper Bay. You can see water levels 3 to locally 5 feet or so above the normal high tide there Saturday. And then on Sunday, those winds come down, at least there in Norton Sound and along the lower Yukon coast, 10 to 15 knots. 3 foot waves, still some brisker winds into Kuskokwim Bay and the Pribilof, southerly winds 30 knots. Waves 4 or 5 feet into Kuskokwim Bay and as much as 8 or 9 feet there around St. Paul. For the Bering Strait, winds are going to generally be northerly at 25 knots, waves around 7 feet as we go north there. Cape Lisburn, Point Hope, north winds to 30 knots and winds fall off northerly 20 knots from Point Lay to Utqiagvik and then turn easterly 20-25 knots, especially Prudhoe Bay to Kaktovik. And then for Sunday, winds are going to be westerly 15 knots, Kaktovik through Utqiagvik to Wainwright. And then coming down through the lower Chukchi Sea, especially once we round the Lisburn Peninsula on Sunday, winds will be northerly 15 knots through the lower Chukchi Sea and then turning northeasterly 20 knots off the western Seward Peninsula around Wales and Port Clarence on over toward the north side of St. Lawrence. Waves generally 3-4 feet, but could be as high as 6-7 feet on Sunday there, especially over toward Gamble.